Hello, in this video we are going to explore the week 6 lab exercise. So this week is very important because we are going to study about AML services in both Azure and AWS, right. So you should be very careful when you are using these services because some of the services are paid. Though you are using student account or you are using free account, still some of the services in AWS or Azure can be chargeable, right. So this you check and only then you try to explore that service. This is the first point I want to say in this, right. So in the previous weeks we have seen how to deploy a web application, okay. So and when we are talking about industry experiences, in almost every interview they are asking about ML ops, or they are talking about end-to-end product development or application development, or they are asking about cloud services, right. So in that preparation, this lab exercise will help you a lot because we are going to explore all the ML related or AI related services in these two platforms, and we are going to build a model, train a model, and we are going to deploy it in these platforms, right. So this is very important, and there are so many other services what you have to learn along with the core services, okay. Already you have studied about compute, or you might have studied about S3 or blob storage in Azure, right. So these things are also required. Along with these, we need lot of other services in both AWS and Azure to deploy AML applications, right. So one prerequisite is that you should already have some code ready with you, or you can download it from, you can take it from ChatGPT, right. Because you should not spend time on learning what is ML now, because already you have studied what is ML, basic regression model or classification model, some basic thing you can execute in today's lab. If you are done with that, then you can go for some advanced problem in machine learning, right. So we'll try to understand what exactly we have to do in AWS and in Azure. Basically AML cycle, it is from loading the data, collecting the data, then you clean the data, then you train the model and you deploy the model, and then you predict it, right. So the most important part here is deployment. We are not nobody is focusing on the deployment. This is the most important phase. So when we talk about ML ops, we are talking about how do you, once the model is trained, how do you deploy this model, how do you take it to the bring it as a product, okay. So this is what you have to focus. But anyhow, so for data in AWS, for loading the data, you can use S3 bucket. In S3 you can load all the data. Then to clean the data, you can use AWS glue service, which you already might have seen when we have studied about SQL services. Then the most important one is Amazon SageMaker. This is a Jupyter notebook like platform, like in Colab or when you install Anaconda, whatever Jupyter notebook you get, right, same notebook you can create here in the SageMaker, okay. So once you click on SageMaker, it will take you to a platform where you can create a new notebook. It will be same as your Colab or your Jupyter notebook in Anaconda, right. There you can load all the modules, whatever you need it, right, and then you can run your code. Then after that, once the model is trained, you have to make the endpoints, right. You have to, like you are creating the endpoints for a web application, same way for ML application you have to create an endpoint. Once you create the endpoint, then you can do the real time inference, meaning let's say it is about regression, you are giving two values, x1 x2, and you are predicting y, okay. Then in that case you can give these two values and test whether your model is giving some predictions or not. That is about the AWS. Exactly, if you see the steps to be followed in today's lab is to upload the data set into S3 bucket, download some data, maybe some basic program, you do it first, then you go for the advanced one, then clean the data using Data Wrangler or AWS Glue. So try to explore both these services, and then open the notebook, write your ML code and train it. You can do it. There is, see, the SageMaker is same as your Colab. There is no difference in that, right. Then like other activities we do in ML model, you can check the accuracy, you can evaluate the model by using some metrics. Then you can create a SageMaker endpoint, okay, and then that endpoint you get an API. That API you use to send the input, you will get the prediction, okay. This CloudWatch is a common service. It is not specific for AML. This can be used for anything. When you are writing serverless function using AWS Lambda, still you can use this CloudWatch to see how your program is responding, right? Even for your web application, you can, this is basically a monitoring tool for any application, whether it's a small program in Lambda or it's a web application or it's an ML application. So it is worth learning this monitoring tool CloudWatch in AWS, right? So these steps you follow, do at least 2 projects in this lab, one basic one, then you go for advanced one, you explore more on this glue, right? I think SageMaker has no difference. You have to focus more on this AWS glue because S3 bucket already you have studied, and SageMaker endpoint, how do I deploy the ML model, is the most important part of today's lab exercise, right? Similarly, in Azure, we will also do the same step. We have already seen how to load the data in blob storage, right? And we also seen how do we load the data or visualize the data using Databricks. So there are 2 services here, Azure Data Factory or Azure Databricks. And similar to SageMaker in AWS, we have here Azure ML Studio. So again, when you click on ML Studio, it will take you to another platform, which will be same like your Colab. So there you write your Python code, you train, you evaluate, do all the steps, and then you will create the endpoints, and then also you will evaluate your train or test your model. So for testing, you have to create an endpoint, and using that endpoint, you have to predict the, if you are doing prediction, you do prediction task with that, right? So detailed steps, if you see, again, upload the data into storage, then create ML workspace, that is ML Studio you open, right? Then you try to prepare the data using Data Factory or Databricks, train your model using ML Studio, register the model, there is an option for registering it, you explore it, and then deploy as endpoint. So ultimately, whether it is AWS or Azure, you are creating an endpoint that will give you an URL, you go to the browser, click that URL, it will ask you the input and output, it will ask you the input, you can give and you can test your model, right? So this is just a basic flow of training the ML models. So taking the data, cleaning it, training the model, and trying to deploy it, right? So deploying is very, very important part. You should know how to deploy cloud AML applications in both AWS and Azure, right? And the along with these services, there are a lot of other inbuilt, or I will say pre-trained. There are a lot of pre-trained models available in both AWS and Azure. Okay, like for example, see, you are using ChatGPT to ask something. There are all similar kind of tools are there. You want to give an image and you want to recognize the objects. A lot of people are doing deep learning work. Image recognition is one deep learning project, right? So this is already made. The model is trained and it is already available in these platforms. You just have to give an image, it will give the output. You want to give text and you want to generate the speech, you need not train a model, it's already available as a service. So there are a lot of other services available in AWS and Azure which are pre-trained. So you can just explore that. Again, I give you a warning, once you are exploring any service, see whether it is free or chargeable, right? If it is free, you use it. If it is chargeable, don't touch it. Maybe you can look for other options or just learn and note down in the notebook. Okay, so this is about week 6 lab exercise. Thank you.